Hey, friends. So today I'm talking about the concept of mindfulness. Now, I have to be honest with you, it kind of sounded a little hokey when I first heard about it. It just, I don't know, that was just me, I guess. But I don't know, maybe you feel that way too at times. But I do remember, well, two things led me to really give it a shot and prove its usefulness to me. Uh, I had a very rough transition, probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. And you'll hear me refer to it, and I'll go into it more often as well as the episodes go by. But it was a really dark time for me personally, and I found that I didn't have the tools to make the transition. I had kind of seen it coming. As I mentioned earlier, we could either be broadsided by a change or just kind of living with our head in the sand. And I think probably it was a combination of both for me. We had moved to a new city, town, out of state, and it was kind of like the perfect storm. All the things collided. So it was a really tough time. Found that I really didn't have the tools, or maybe I had the tools, but I wasn't managing them very well. That could be it as well. And so someone introduced this concept to me about mindfulness. Now, one of the reasons it really stuck with me is because I don't know if you're like this, but I tend to talk to myself. I mean, okay, don't I'm not I'm not totally loony, and I don't always do it out loud. But over the course of the day, if I find myself alone, or I'm kind of frustrated, things aren't going well, I start those tapes inside my head. Maybe you're familiar with them, or maybe you know someone, maybe you have a friend who does that as well. And they usually generate with, oh, poor me, look at how tough I have it, thinking about so and so, how could he do this to me? How could she say that to me? And I don't necessarily share them with anyone, but it doesn't matter. They're going around and around and around in my head. And therein lies the problem. That's where the damage is being done. So the concept was introduced to me because in this context, don't think too much about the past because you may tend to get depressed. And don't think too much about the future because you may tend to get anxious. And that kind of hit me right between the eyes because not technically, I'm not talking about like clinical depression, but I do know that depression does run in my family, and it may run in yours. I don't know, or just you've had experience with it, uh, and the messages that I kept telling myself, the sentences, the phrases, the stories that kept going on in my head were not helping me at all. So what mindfulness does is it keeps you in the present. You're not uh, you know, constantly reliving, rediscussing, revisiting the past, and you're not planning too far in the future either, because if you're anything like me, we tend to get a little anxious if we think too much. Oh, what's going to happen if, and will I be able to do such and such, and that brings its own anxiety, right? So you can't think too far in advance. So mindfulness is staying in the present moment. And I'll have these questions in the show notes. But I have some questions that can help you practice mindfulness. Okay.